Alors maintenant, on va parler de robots. Donc, j'appelle Stéphane Vérin de Uptex, Pete Santora from Software Inc. Where is Pete? He's here. Et Donatien Mourmand de Tekin. Et Pierre de Chanville de Tekin. So, this roundtable will be done in English. Because we have a special guest, I will introduce now everyone to talk about fashion and robotics. Because it's a very important thing right now, which opens probably huge, very different perspectives for fashion. Stéphane, what is Uptex? Can you explain?
Yes, good morning, everybody. Uptex is a cluster based here, basically in northern France, and we gathered around 130 companies and 30 research organizations dedicated to innovation in the textile sector. And when we are talking about the textile sector, we are talking from the raw materials, from the fiber, up to the end-use product. So apparel industry, but also in technical textile, innovative textile for all those applications across all the industries.
And we have the pleasure as well to welcome Pete Santora. Pete comes from Atlanta to see us. Wow. And actually how I met Pete is very indicative about what fashion is now. I just wrote a LinkedIn message to Pete about 1 month ago, was it? Yeah? And I say, okay, I'm doing FashionTechDays. We would love you to come and explain. And he said, okay, I'm coming. That's how it was. Yeah. So please, can you introduce yourself very briefly, and then we'll go into the subject.
I think this session's in English because of me, so thank you. I'm Pete Santora from Software Automation. Software automation is like an autonomous driving car for sewing. So we're like Tesla for your new sewing machines. We create automated sewing good work lines for the fashion and apparel industry. So we identify a product, like a t-shirt, and then we figure out how to construct it in an automated way, and then we build a platform for automating that good.
Okay, we are going to see it later. Let me introduce Pierre and Donatien from Tekin.
So hello everybody, I'm Pierre, one of the co-founders of Tekin. What we do basically is we organize a short-circuit supply chain for confection, for apparel fabrication, in order to be able to offer on-demand production in 48 hours at prices that can compete with ready-to-wear. This means we put in there a lot of technology, same as Pete, but we rather work along the whole chain to offer the service.
And I'm Don, so the partner of Pierre. So we founded Tekin a year ago. There is a year and a half of technology development. We don't speak that much about the technology that have been developed till now, but we assure that everything is going to be up and running by mid-December. We are definitely looking for partners who share our vision of how can we produce in a more efficient and more intelligent way apparel, and how to put more money now in the material thanks to on-demand production. That's what we're going to explain next.
Okay. So to start the subject, I asked Stéphane to prepare for us a very short presentation about where are we? Where are the robots right now? Stéphane is just back from Taiwan, so maybe he has some new interesting things to tell us.
Yeah, thank you, Annick. And first of all, I call it, as it is the name of this roundtable, robotics and fashion. But basically, we should have talked about robotics and apparel industry. Because you know that in our sector, we have a long value chain from the raw material, from the fiber, up to the end of the production, which is mainly sewing and confection. And in the previous year, the textile sector, the textile industry has always been a capitalistic sector. You need to invest, you need some machineries, and you need to invest a lot of monies in order to produce textile, to produce a fabric. But the difficulties has always been at the end of the value chain in the apparel sector, where it is not anymore a capitalistic production, but it's a labor-intensive production. And it's why, one of the reasons why we saw huge part of that industry left from Europe, left from US, moving eastern part of the world where the labor costs were really down. And at that period of time, it's also one of the reasons why we saw the explosion of sweater shops in all Asia, where with a lot of difficulties in the condition of works for all the workers everywhere. But now the situation moved, and it is part of what Clarisse explained us a few minutes ago. We are in a digital world, and we are in a world which is changing really fast. 5 years ago, robots in the apparel industry were a kind of a dream. And in 2-3 years, we saw we saw some new initiatives, we saw some new companies invest in that sector. We can estimate that now the robot sector will be a huge part of the industry in 5 years. Not only in, of course, in automotive sector, in aerospace sector, but also in the apparel sector. We will not talk about, as you understand, about the fabrics. We will not talk about retails, where also robots will change the world probably in the next period. We will really talk about production of a garment. Okay. The world is changing fast. Just few facts, just few words about what's happened here. Subot, and we are really pleased to see you, and it's really an honor. Funded in 2007, 10 years ago, a new company. 7.5 million of US funding raised on the market. Is it correct? It's crunch-based, but it's something like that.
Most of our funding actually is most of our funding is actually in grants. So the 7.5 should have probably another 7.5 just in government grants.
And so you just signed an agreement, if I'm correct, with a Chinese company, the Tianwan Garment Company, to open a new plant in Little Rocks, Arkansas, for Adidas, with the objective with 300 bots, to produce 800,000 T-shirts daily for Adidas.
So maybe the first cut and sew factory to come back to the US in 30 years.
So that's really interesting. It's a company which was producing lots of T-shirts in Asia, which is moving back to US, moving back to produce T-shirts in US. And what is also interesting, it's not a US investment, it's a Chinese company which moved west. KSL in Germany, they developed a robot sewing unit, the KL504. It's not for garments, but it's a sewing unit for mainly composite materials. So it's in technical textile. It's in for automotive sector, aerospace sector. So there's also connection. Vitron in Germany also, which presented in text process and received an award for the automated sewing machine. And another company which is really interesting, Grabit, US, also in California. It's a spin-off from Stanford Research Institute and Caltech, funded in 2013, $21 million US dollars raised, including $3 million from Nike. And they produce a robot that can grab everything using static electricity. one of the difficulties for robots, and probably you will explain us better, that is, how can you grab something which is flexible? And that's one of the key subjects in the textile and apparel industry. Oops. Okay, the world is also changing in the shoes industry, which is also related to our industry, because it's also the same issues about labor cost and intensive production. This year, Adidas launched in 2016 the concept of a speed factory. And they just opened a plant in Hambach in Germany, which will produce that shoes, the AM for London, and they will produce the AM for Paris, AM for Germany, which is a kind of a customized, fully developed by robots. And so they will produce in that factory 500,000 shoes a year, which is a small quantity regarding the total quantity of Adidas shoes produced in the world. But they already opened a plant in Germany. They plan to open a plant in Great Britain and perhaps in France later. Nike, they created Advanced Apparel Exploration Collection 1.0. They made up of 9 pieces, a capsule collections where they use performance data collected from athletes. It's big data, and it's fed through a knitting machine. They call it the fly knit technology. So they produce one piece of fabrics, which is the total garments. In France, we have a startup, which is Aveka, which presents the first evolutive smart connected dummy. And we only talk about robots, but also we can talk about 3D printing, which is a kind of robot in one way, because with one product, you can produce a full garment or part of a full garment. Just a few examples, you know them as us. 3D printed bikini, 3D printed garments in the kinematic dress, and also in the shoes where there's lots of investment at that period of time in China, in US too, on that subject. Okay, tomorrow, we can imagine a world where we have a fully vertical automated on-demand clothing factory. That's a patent from Amazon Clarice told us before. This patent, you can't submit it in Europe because you can't patent a process in Europe, but they patented in US. This patent, it's an on-demand automated system from the fabric using digital printing, sewing technology, robots, and of course big data and internet to produce on demand. Or we can imagine also that it's a result of a competition of designer run by Electrolux, which is a brand producing day-to-day des produits du quotidien, de l'aspirateur et autres. And so they explore what could be the future. And the future, that's a word from a designer, which is a 3D printer of T-shirts that you can have at home, where you basically introduce a bottle of water, a PET bottle of water. The 3D printer will recycle it and produce a T-shirt. It's only a dream, it's only a design competition, but it could be something in the future. So, some question for the roundtable. What are the technological limits of the existing technology? We are talking about materials. Can you use your robots for every materials? Cotton, polyester, other kind of fibers, other kind of materials? The shape, we are talking about T-shirts. What about dress? What about pants? What about the rest of the garments? The kind of structure, because T-shirt, of course, it's basic structure. Can we imagine in the future moving forward? What's up in downstream, in retail? So robotics will also play a game there. And upstream in textile factories. There's already robots in textile factories. We talk about in the finishing sector, in textile sectors, there's already robot there. But the robotic trends will expand also? What is the rate of return? Because basically, if you buy a robot to replace, to develop your production, what is the cost, or in which year will you have a rate of return? Does it worth to invest money in a full automated factory? What are the impacts on skills of your employees? That's also a major issue. What will be the workers of tomorrow in those kind of factories? And also we need to take into account what will be the impact on emerging countries and the global supply chain. Thank you.
Thank you, Stéphane. Now we have the questions. We're going to keep them with us, and there will be maybe other questions coming from the audience later. Pete, we would like to know a little bit more about what is this Subot? What is it doing exactly? So I asked Pete to come with videos so that we can really see what is it about and understand better.
I've got this. Okay, you could keep that. Do we have my couple slides?
Can we start the video?
Yeah. So thanks again for having me. I'm sure we'll figure this out as we go. Yeah. We could, I could bring a bunch of slides and go through a bunch of videos on what we do, but whenever I show home goods to apparel people, they always get mad at me because they don't see any connection between home goods, a square bath mat, and the beautiful things that you guys are wearing. So I'm going to leave those videos out, but they're important. They're really important to the future. A square bath mat today is very important to how tomorrow's fashion will be constructed. Obviously, no one's wearing a square bath mat, but so our technology is like Tesla. So we use cameras and sensors to map fabric. So we turn a physical good into a digital good. We do that by looking at the threads. So we treat all the threads on your fabric like roads. So we see how each thread intersects with another thread and what its relationship is to another street. So if you have two different pieces, a front and a back, and those are laying next to each other flat, we know exactly how those things go together in a 3D shape. And where they need to be in relation to each other as we're sewing. So the really hard technical problem that we solved was that fabric distorts. Every time the needle hits fabric, fabric moves. That is the reason why we haven't automated sewing today. It's also the reason that when you saw the chart of the robots, everyone remember the chart of the robots going, the timeline of the robots? You didn't see apparel on there. Robots in apparel well, they failed the apparel industry, really. They have done good for automotive. They've done great things in other spaces. In apparel, it's just, it's too soft. It distorts too easily. It's too light. It's too thin. It's too everything. All the things you love about fabric are all the reasons why robots suck for fabric. I don't know how to translate suck, but it means not good, bad. failure, okay? So, let's go to...
It's coming, it's coming, it's coming.
Okay.
It's
Oh,
charging.
okay. All right. I'll keep talking about suck.
You can talk for 30 seconds, I guess.
The power of suck. No, that's the new topic of my talk. So robots, let me just talk a little bit more why robots are bad, okay? Robots are bad because apparel is created in a process. It gets cut, but traditionally it gets cut in giant stacks. So very thin, lightweight, breathable fabric is squished and then cut in stacks of 100. And then you have to unpeel all of those stacks. You have to make sure that the pieces then match each other, because you don't want them from different layers of fabric, or right, the color would be a little bit off. You then have to take them to station 1 and do something, and then go to station 2 and do something, and then move station 3, 4, 5, 6. And you have this whole process of constructing the good, and you're turning it over, front and back, and then 2 pieces together. And robots, all the while the fabric is moving and crumpling and bunching, and robots don't know how to deal with that. They can't deal with it. They cannot. The traditional view of a robot, where it's a humanoid and its hands, okay, they do not work like human hands. Okay, robot hands do not work like human hands. They are not going to replace these anytime soon. They have to do things like use electrostatic or use some type of adhesive, or they pinch. All of those things can be really detrimental to constructing a piece, a good, a sewn good. So that is, am I just, are we close? I'll figure out how much more I want to add to this point.
So, just to have the time to make it work,
Yes.
maybe I will ask Pierre and Donatien to say what they are thinking about robots and how they included this idea of robot in their business model.
Maybe I will just start. Just the way we see the apparel industry combining with automation is not you go from scratch to everything fully automated, and our approach is not this one. And I anticipate a bit a question about savoir-faire. We see ourselves as a facilitator between the tisseur, in French, sorry, the manufacturing plants, so all the savoir-faire, all the French savoir-faire, the people who know how to sew, and finally the brands. So we do it that step by step, and at first we really focus on the pre-production parts of manufacturing an apparel.
Just to answer specifically the question, we think robots suck too. Sorry for that.
It's the anti-robot foundation.
Well, not really, but everything that Pete said is definitely founded. And I think you asked us a couple of weeks ago what we thought about analogy to automotive industry. And here we do have exactly the difference. Fine with robots that were created for the automotive industry a couple of decades ago, but they're simply not to be implemented in our world. And I think one of the first things that Sobot identified at the beginning is that you need a new type of machinery for this industry. And this has not been done over the past years as it should have.
Yeah, so we, in end of the late 80s, beginning of the early 90s, Levi's automated jeans. The 5-pocket jean, fully automated. Went down a line, it moved, it went through all these different stations. They did have a seamstress kind of at different stations doing something, but otherwise the automation all around it was fully automated. The problem was as soon as they changed the style, right? As soon as they made one style change, they had to change the whole work line. And so the cost to change the hardware for the styles killed automation in the US. And so instead of trying to figure out how to do that across styles, they just said, let's go to Asia. And so that was really the end of both automation and US manufacturing was right kind of early 90s, and then by 99, 2000, China had become close to 80 billion and was on its way to what it is now, about 360 billion. So, so the point of that is the key to this technology, and this technology is definitely not the end all be all. It's not. We're not going to solve every problem, right? But the key to this technology is all the intellectual property and the brains is in the software. It's not in the hardware, right? So what you don't see is more important than what you do see. And that's really oh, good, I can see my slides over, yes. This is exciting, everyone. This has really built it up now. This better be the most incredible presentation. There it is, the Sobot. Uh-oh, that's not a good, I don't read French, but that's not good.
We need a PPT robot.
Yes. We need a PowerPoint robot. So
I don't think it's going to work.
It's not?
That's the bad news of the day.
okay, put up the slides on the side. I will go through them in miniature. Okay, very small slides. They'll be very exciting. But do you have internet access? Yeah. Do you have internet access? Well, I see your tweet, so you have internet access. I have it online too. You guys can do this with me, okay? Oh, that was great. Okay, we'll just go right to this, and I'll explain it to you, okay? So, this usually builds up. This is like this is the exciting shot once you've seen the other technology. But the first thing we do is we have all these wonderful little blue eyes in the sky. So we put cameras all the way along the system, okay? And then you could see the blue boxes. Those also have cameras, lots of cameras, okay? And so what happens is the eyes in the sky can see oh, okay, I can control this now. Uh-oh, I better not touch it. This is a better view of it. Okay, hold on, something is working. I'm just going to keep clicking until something there. Okay, so that is, let's go to the next slide. Here we go. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to, from the cameras in the top, we're going to look down at the piece of fabric, and we're going to identify what type of fabric is. So the way we do this, I'm just going to keep on this slide because otherwise we're really in trouble. So we use these cameras to look down, and then we can identify the shapes that are coming across. So all of this information that we're using to identify the shape, that is all coming from the designers. Everything that you guys design that goes into AccuMark or whatever the PLM system is, whatever that design file is, we use that design file to sew the good. Okay, so we don't create our own. So we use your design file. We use your specifications to see what that good is, and then how it should be sewn, and and then we know where that operation is on the line. So once we identify it, we transport it, and so each one of these. Each one of these you can hardly see, but this table is full of balls, small balls that go in 360 degrees, and so they use a number of different technologies to grab the fabric. So air is one of them, like a vacuum. They grab the fabric. And then they all work together. All of these balls are working in unison. So in the US military, they call this a swarm. So when they see the fabric, they can transport it, or they can see wrinkles, and then they can move in opposite directions and actually take the wrinkle out of the fabric. So you can go online, if you search, go to YouTube, and you type in software, SOFTWEAR, you'll be able to understand everything that I'm telling you right now. And then the transportation system then takes it from station to station, all the way down the line, just like silicon chips are created today, right? So there's this assembly line, just like cars. There's this lean manufacturing process, the most optimized way to kind of construct a good. And then it takes it all the way down the line, and at the end, you have a full T-shirt. But yeah, if you go online to YouTube, you'll see it all. And then you can visualize what I'm talking about. Okay?
Sorry for that, but we have a technical problem just right now, which is not, we're not very lucky, but okay, that happens. Okay, could we go back to the questions we had from the previous presentation so that we can talk about those key questions for the industry? Before, would you like to describe a little bit more your process, or is it fully secret? Or can you tell us a little bit about it? Where are the robots, at what stage, and what are they doing exactly? Or maybe there are no robots at all. So what's going on in the tech-in
It's maybe we had to clarify the difference we make between robots and machines and automated machines.
Yeah, please.
A robot, as Pete mentioned, is most of the time conceived as a humanoid, which works in the same way as, which is copied off the human body and is not adapted. But automatisms in a chain are fully required. And the next step also, which is definitely the most important, and which is also used today in the industry, there's no good automatic if there's no good software. And there's no good software if there's no good process engineering before this. So these are the main steps that we have gone through for all kinds of garments. And we have put into pieces the different standard processes of the garment production, cut this in single bricks, and try to find out which ones need to be automated today so that on-demand production can appear at a reasonable price, and which other ones can still be done manually today, but in a very coordinated way, and for which we have developed the software. So we're from the beginning to the end of the value chain, not on the sewing parts only, with certain automation bricks and other coordination bricks in order to be able to deliver in a reliable way, in a very short period of time, a single piece.
Okay. So now Donatien?
Maybe just to add one thing. So because what's important for you as brands is, okay, how can I use that technology and what's going to be the impact on the market? The reason why it's important to look at those possibilities is that you have the possibility, once you can produce locally in 5 days, to open a huge number of sales funnel. You can sell products that you don't have. So you can put on a website 100 items, 1,000 items. You don't have any stocks. You produce the stock as soon as something is being sold. And that's really important for fashion, because the iterative approach of the fashion is what makes Zara working, but they do it in 3 weeks. And we are looking at doing that in 2 days, 3 days. That's only one example of what you can do when you have a possibility to have a stock within 2 days. So the way we see it for now is that every brand has a platform, has all the models that they have all the material that they have, material and furnitures, and they can play with it, and they can say, okay, I'm just going to try a new collection, a capsule. I don't have any risk on the material. I don't have any financial risk on the stock, and I will see how the market react. Okay, the market wants that product, then perfect, I'm going to produce it. The market doesn't want that product, that's fine, I'm going to produce another collection. So the reason why I think that we are here today is to try to make the link between what the technology can bring and how you guys can use it on your everyday life. How can you satisfy more the customers, and how can it really change something, and how you can really bring something more to the customers. So that's...
Okay, so if we now go, what are the limits? What is difficult in what you are doing, both of you? What were the really difficult points to address when you started this idea of automation for fashion? What is hard? What is difficult?
Well, I cannot speak for Pete, but I'll speak for us. Fashion is an area, a sector that requires huge diversity. And for automation, you need some kind of standardization. And it's in matching properly these two requirements that we can bring up a good product. It's in getting standardized flexibility or flexible standardization that we can satisfy you at the right price and in the right lead times. This is the most complex part of the whole chain for us.
Pete, what was the most difficult in your product development, super development?
Everything.
Everything.
Everything is difficult. It is, yeah, the fabrics are really complex. The variation in fabrics, the number of different techniques you use, and then the number of techniques you add to a good. You change the stitch type. It's the same good. It's a different stitch. It's a fabric we can work with mixed with a fabric we can't work with. So everything is difficult in fashion. But I'd say this: if you the high quality goods that you're producing today, we're not there. We're nowhere close. Okay, and so we basically break the market out into artisanal goods and basics. Okay, and I think that automation will be in basics for a long time. That's well, when it comes, it will be in basics and will continue in basics for a long time, and it will gradually move into more and more technical work, but that artisanal work will always be done. It will probably always be done in Asia or some other supply chain like this, where maybe it's a smaller batch production, and automation will be at the basic level.
Okay, can we talk about prices a little bit? Is it expensive to open this factory with hundreds of robots? What is the price of one, for instance? If I want to buy one, what's the price? If I want to buy 1,000, what's the price?
How many people are making T-shirts today here? And is anyone designing a T-shirt here? Okay. Yes? One?
Yes, of course, they are shy.
Okay. Two. So I think that so for T-shirts, about $2 million, give or take. Your total investment, if you started from nothing and you wanted to create a manufacturing facility for T-shirts, I think it would be about $3 to $5 million USD. That would be to start a factory.
And for that price, how many different kind of machines do we have, just to understand?
That's a hard question.
Or is it a line? Is it an assembly line?
It's a line. It will produce T-shirts from for that amount. You'll be able to fully automate a factory from beginning to end. So in comes fabric rolls, and out goes finished T-shirts. And then how you work within that framework, if you're using this is what I think is interesting about fashion right now, and automation. Automation looks really boring to a lot of you. Not that the possibility isn't great, but that the capability for fashion is not great, right? I'm talking about a T-shirt. Who cares if you're in fashion, right? Well, some people, a T-shirt can start the fashion process, but really what the T-shirt is a basic is a basic technical block. And designers are always starting with these basic technical blocks and then building out from those basic technical blocks into the good that they want. And I think it's important that you continue doing what you continue thinking in pushing the envelope of fashion, but also look at what automation, how you could design for automation. And very little design for automation is happening because very little automation exists. But I think that will be a group of people who are extremely successful and kind of lead a new wave by understanding what automation can do and designing for it. And the reason why I think even in its basic form why that's important is because if you can do that, you can put design right next to the factory, the automated factory, and you can put that all right in your local community. And that will be something that is incredibly inspiring to your community and will be something that people want, regardless of whether or not it has the latest something. It will be something that represents your community, and that will build into more and more complex goods.
So Pete, any idea of return on investment? When is, if I set up this just next door here, if we set up an automated factory here,
yeah,
how many pieces do we have to produce to get a return on investment?
So a better way to look at it is, for us, is what is the cost to make an individual good, right? And so in China, it's about 20 cents to make a t-shirt, give or take. In the US right now, it's about $1. It's $1. In Mexico, it's about 50 cents, 30 to 50 cents, somewhere in there. This new work line, the cost will be 44 cents to make a t-shirt. So when you include duties, transit and duties, we're going to be on par with Asia, Central America, Asia and Central America to produce a t-shirt.
Okay. Donatien and Pierre, what is, can you tell us a little bit about price, investment to start your system? What kind of investment is needed?
There's no investment. That's the good news for you guys. We invest in the technology, we support the risk of the technology, and we provide it to the brands. That's why we're looking for partners, long-term partners, and I totally share your vision, saying we're looking at teams that are able to work together to see what we can do with automation and to see how we can produce something locally. In terms of prices, that's easy. Our easy target is a dress that you can sell in the market to 60 euro public price. So it's going to be produced in France. The thing is that, exactly as you said, we don't want to look anymore at the cost of the product out of the factory. We want to look at all the other costs: cost of transport, cost of issues with culture, issues with product quality, issues with the stocks you're going to be let off at the end of the season, and all the sales that you're going to lose because you don't have the stocks anymore. And so we really want to speak with people that have this strategic approach to say, okay, maybe it's a bit more expensive and not that much, but I have so much flexibility with the automation that I can have a totally different approach to the market, and I can correspond much more to my customers' needs.
And the only thing I'd like to add to this is today we want to be able to produce garments that are sold 60 euros public price, but we're evolving on the technology. It's not a fixed technology at all. We're gaining every single month in effectiveness, and we intend within 3 years to be able to have halved this benchmark.
Yeah, I have two questions for Pete. Basically, you said that, I have two questions for you. Basically, you said that you, basic will still be the the main, you will still work for basic products for still a long time because there's a lot of complexity behind that, but you're paving the way. So when you say a long time, how can you estimate when we will move to a step further? So that was my first question. And second question is, on your drawings, you present the automated line from already cutted shapes. And can we imagine to move a step further? So to start not only from the cutted shapes, but from the roll of fabrics, including an automated cutter, for example, and then, for example, digital printer, to have a fully integrated production line from the roll of fabric to the final product.
Yeah, so, excuse me, the transition from basics to more. I always like to say that fashion, every time I show something like the bath mats, whenever I show a material, everyone always says, yeah, but can you do the next thing? So we show bath mats, and then apparel people said, can you do this? And then we showed denim. So we did a project for the Walmart Foundation where we did a series of steps in jeans. We did 3 or 4 steps in jeans, and then the apparel industry said, well, that's denim. Can you do knits? Because knits are much more, much softer, and then we do something in knits, and then, but can you do, a giant peacock head with, with dinosaurs coming out the side? It's very complex, the difference between basics and fashion, something else, right? So I think for the next 5 to 10 years, we'll be in basics plus. So I like to think, take the technical block. I love going into the fast fashion. Who's gone into a fast fashion shop lately? A Zara? Okay. So I go in. The first product I see on the shelf is a women's T-shirt with no collar. It's a raw collar. It's rolled. No sleeve. It's a rolled, the fabric is rolled at the end. It's not finished. It's not hemmed. And then at the bottom, it's a rolled bottom with no hem. I'm like, we can do that. I can do that now. We're in the business. We're in fast fashion. We're in fashion. I'm in the fashion business. I don't know the difference between the basic plus and fashion, right? That's a lot of what I say is the opportunity. I say T-shirt, you say fashion. Suddenly we don't think it exists. Then we go into Zara, and it's like, oh, well, there it is. So, and it's actually even less than what we can do, right? We want our stuff to do more. But here, fashion is less. And so, understanding what automation can do and designing around that is why I think it's going to be so important to understand that difference. And then to your your second question was
to integrate a step further, so moving from the roll of fabrics, including digital printing, etc.
So it's hard to imagine this. So even in the U.S., the reason why the one factory that is coming into the U.S. is Chinese is because there's no U.S. manufacturers that really exist that are doing T-shirts. American Apparel went out of business. It got bought by Gildan. It goes to Central America. So in order to do this, in order to kind of envision this whole system, we have partners, more and more brands that are getting involved. But now they're buying into our concept factory. So we're developing a concept factory in Atlanta. We're putting the cutting technology, the sewing technology, the folding technology, the packaging technology, all into one facility. We're doing it for apparel. We're also doing it for footwear. So we do. That's why I say I think the investment for a complete factory from roll to finished good is $3 to $5 million. We've already spec'd out a lot. The difficulty with it is how do you deal with 50 plies or 100 plies of something off of a cutter onto a sewing line that only deals with single ply. We only deal with
Okay, so
a
we
single
might
t-shirt.
have a FashionTechDays in Atlanta next week, might be.
So you're all invited in May. I think we're having the opening of our facility for one day, and then we close it down to the public. It's right before text process. Consider this your official invitation to our facility. And if you want more, you can email me, and I'll be happy to make sure you have an address so you don't just fly to Atlanta and sit in the airport.
Yeah, great. We are really awaiting this. Pierre and Donatien, do you feel a lot of interest from French, I don't know, manufacturers, retailers? Who is impatient to buy your system, or are people a little bit reluctant still? How is it going? How do you feel it?
I'm going from the solar industry. I started 10 years ago in solar industry. When solar was not competitive. Today it's competitive in 50 countries in the world. And when I moved to fashion, everybody was like, oh, you're really going into that? I mean, are you crazy, or like, what's going on? That's a passive market. There is like, people are not motivated, like you're gonna see no innovation. And that's definitely not what I'm seeing. Definitely, I see a lot of people that are really open-minded, that really wants to change things. Of course, they are thinking about like long-term issues, because they are working on the collection within 9 months, 18 months. So they have their own issues, but they definitely want to change something. And we don't have to forget that's, environmentally speaking, that's not the best sector. And we don't even speak about the condition of work of the clothes that we wear today. And yeah, I could say that 80% of the people I meet really want to change something in that market, and they really see that the way the way the industry is organized today probably can no longer work this way. I mean, it's not a long-term view. It's not sustainable in a long-term view, and they really want to change something. So yes, there is a lot of people that really wants to work with us. It's not easy. I mean, it's
a big change.
It's a big change. It's an iterative process. That's why we're not looking for people that are looking at the price. We're looking for partners to build something together. But people are really motivated, and people really wants to put back sense into that business.
Just to spend 1-2 minutes about the skills. What kind of new skills are we going to have to build? Because let's figure out 10 people in this room decide to invest in an automated sewing factory. What kind of people do we need to make them work? I mean, to run those factories.
Well, first of all, developers.
Okay.
It's actually true if you don't have it.
Yeah.
Obviously, no, sorry. First of all, people who have been working with the material.
Okay.
We need them to have the know-how, to have the feeling about the material itself. Then the developers who understand them and put this into good processes. And then mechanical engineers and all the people who have a good feeling for the machines, knowing that mechanics is no more mechanics today, it's electronics most of the time. So in terms of skills, technical skills, these are the most important people. Now, this is only for the factory. On the other hand, people don't talk with machines. We talked about the developers who do some kind of interface, but in our everyday life, when Donatien speaks with a brand, obviously he doesn't have an answer in digits. And there are totally new profiles that we are actually growing with today, who are people who come from the fashion industry, who in the same time understand full pattern and product scheme, and on the other hand understand the requirements of the automated system that is behind this, and are capable of putting these requirements into the right boxes. This interface part is actually the newest part of the whole chain for us.
The first skill is, for me, is language. The designers don't talk technology. Technology doesn't talk design. We've got someone from solar power coming into fashion. I'm from high tech. I knew nothing about sewing and manufacturing coming into apparel industry. This this is the new reality, right? You have Flextronics building a footwear factory for Nike. They know nothing about the first thing they did is they built a footwear apparel and all started sewing footwear. All because the gap between technology and apparel is so great, right? The design process. So that's the first. We have to be able to speak the same language. And then I'll just briefly talk about the other skills that I think are important in the global sense are the factories in Vietnam, Bangladesh. The skills they need to learn today, they're put in a single sewing machine and they just learn one skill, how to do one operation, because that's the fastest way to make them profitable. And so then they do that one operation for years. I mean, literally 20 years doing an operation, and unbelievable how fast some of them are. It's phenomenal. It's like a blink of an eye. They're doing crazy things. That will not exist in the future. They will have to be able to make a whole good. They'll have to be able to do every operation along the line. So the countries in Asia will have to learn how to create flexible workers that can do more operations.
Yeah, perhaps just two questions is for you. We imagine that this kind of technologies could be a way to bring some plants back in US, back in Europe. But don't you think that Asia will invest also lots in automation and that production will still be over there because there's a lot of money, there's a lot of industry which already exist, and so they have probably a capacity to move faster than us in terms of creation of activity. Another question is about what we saw since this morning with Clarice Ray's presentation, and that one is we heard about Google, Amazon, your company, other companies, and none of them existed last century. We are with new players on the fashion market. Do you think that these trends will continue and that the old player will still be existing in the next few years?
So the first one, I love the first question. Yes. So the first question is, we're building all this automation. We're talking about local manufacturing, but why not automate Asia? So great question. The answer is you automate. So for the last 200 years, we haven't really shortened any of the lead times around manufacturing apparel. All we've done is lengthen them. So the main technologies are plane, computer, and what that's done is increased our ability to travel further. It's created technology and systems like Excel to be able to track shipments and coordinate, and it's allowed us to go to Asia rather than be local. So all we've done is extend lead times. So when we came out with our technology, what we said was, no Asia, you can't buy. So when we published, we had 163 countries come to us. We have more than 10,000 contract manufacturers that have contacted us to purchase a unit, and we've told them no. So they have to set up a factory in the US. It's the only way we'll provide the technology to them. And the reason for that is because they're making for the US. Like if they were making for China, it would be a different story. But the Chinese factories and the Vietnamese factories, and they're making for the US market. Why sell the technology to them and then allow us to ship so in terms of sustainability, the global supply chain is terrible. It's terrible. You're getting fabrics in one place, you're shipping to another place to cut and sew, you're shipping back to a distribution center, you're shipping to a warehousing, and then you're shipping to the retailer or the consumer. It makes very little sense until you realize how cheap labor is. Then it makes a lot of sense. So what I tell all the supply chain people is just for a second, take labor out of your supply chain. What does it look like? Totally different. It looks totally different. No one would construct the supply chain that they have today. So rather than the Asian manufacturers coming to us and saying, we have money and we're manufacturers and we're ready to go and we have the factory to put it in, we want to write you a check. We say, that's awesome, we're glad you have the experience, now write the check for a factory in the US, because now the lead time is 2 to 3 days, and that's not just the supply side, that's the consumer. So the consumer wants the good in 2 to 3 days, and they want it to be constructed when they make it more customized, more personalized. So the only way to really answer the future is not to automate Asia, it's to automate your local region. And when China is producing for China, or Vietnam is producing for that area, then that's great, automate that.
You have something to add, Pierre?
Very difficult to add anything to this, Pete. I think if we call our project building a short circuit production process, it's for all these reasons, including sustainability.
Okay, so I think we can say a big thanks to all to talk about this quite new and maybe, quite new subject. But we felt it was really one of the key points to see for the fashion industry right now, and to figure out what to do to maybe have a little bit more of autonomy as well in terms of production. Tell me if I'm wrong, Pete, the start of the program was by the American Army, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, so first of all, I came when Annick asked me because it's fashion. I like talking to fashion because I think fashion is the least knowledgeable about what's going on, and also the most important to the future of this technology. So fashion to me is incredibly important. It's so one. Two, it was originally, we're a 10-year-old startup. Okay, so we're very old. We've only sold machines. We've only been commercial for the last 2 years, so 8 years in research and development. It was funded by DARPA, so that's the Defense Department for the US government, and it was funded because we have a clause called the Berry Amendment that says that all US military clothing needs to be made in the US. So the only manufacturers that are left in the US are making something for our military, our police, and our firefighters. That's basically, that represents, so we have 146,000 apparel workers, people working in the apparel industry in a 60 to 70 million person industry. And those people are mostly doing US military.
Okay, thank you again.
Thanks. Thank you.